Welcome. This video is documenting the prediction that famous singer-songwriter Paul Simon of Simon and Garfunkel will slip and fall and severely injure his head on December 19th, 2025. The post date on the social media platform that you are watching this video on proves that this prediction is being made ahead of time, as does this time-stamped email and forensic notes PDF document. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. At the end of the last video for this paragraph, I mentioned how hopefully you are watching these videos in chronological order. I recommend that in general, by the way, because if you watch the videos in the order of the most recent video posted, you will be watching the videos in reverse order from which the insights came, because the insights build on themselves. So it's wise in general to go back as far as you can and start from there and go forward. Just in general, it's just a guideline. I'm just giving you a guideline there. It's not necessarily what you need to do at all. But in general, that's how it works. In the case of this video, we're talking about the reasons for December 19th. And, well, anyway, these two paragraphs, like I said, overlap each other. Well, anyway, I just thought I would add that it's a good idea to, try to watch the videos in chronological order. In other words, the order in which I post them, not the ones most recently posted back in time, and going from that direction back in time. All right. Now, well, speaking of, chronological, I already mentioned the sale of Paul Simon's mansion. All right, and also the sale of the mansion made for the TV producer of Seventh Heaven. So this is another example of how, if one's watching these videos in chronological order, you should be doing this. At least for the December 19th videos, I recommend you doing that. It's not even just a guideline. Okay, I changed my mind. Well, anyway, whatever. So back to what I was saying here. The sale of the mansion that was built for the producer of Seventh Heaven, the most prolific TV producer in history, Aaron Spelling, was sold on the date 8/1. I already explained the prophetic significance of the sale of the mansion in the other paragraph. This hinted at the sound of silence by Simon and Garfunkel that was heard in heaven in Revelation 8:1. Okay? So in other words, prior to 8:1, it was recognized ahead of time that God was overwhelmingly pointing to this date regarding Paul Simon. And naturally, it made perfect sense that Paul Simon would die on August 11th. August 1st, 8/1. Because this is how it works, right? God points to a date regarding the theme, the prediction, and it's not necessarily known ahead of time whether or not that date will be another step in the trail of signs or be the end of the trail. And without any other information, you have to conclude that it's the end of the trail. And so, in other words, I made a lot of videos explaining how God was pointing ahead of time to August 1st, 8/1, because of Revelation 8/1. There was so much connections from other prophetic signs and confirmation, and amazing, profound information contained in the stories that God is able to tell through the connections, like I explained earlier, that you need to watch them. But what I also want to tell you is that all of the analysis, all of the explanations for the connections from other signs to August 1st, 8/1, that hinted at Revelation 8/1 and the sound of silence in heaven, all of that analysis, all of those videos are 100% correct. 100% true. I hope I'm clear. I know far better than anyone, including you, the reason and purpose for this video and this prediction from God. And I know how God's big picture of signs works. And no, the videos that predicted Paul Simon would die on August 1st were not, quote unquote, wrong. It was all 100% correct. Therefore, God did it, and therefore, you need to learn what God did. Just because the videos that talk about August 1st did not come to pass that Paul Simon died on August 1st does not mean that you don't need to watch them. You need to watch them, and they are equally valid as this video that's predicting December 9th. And who knows, December 19th. And who knows, December 19th might also be a step in the trail. In fact, it's a 50-50% chance. I have no idea. But knowing how God's science works, I know that there's a good chance that it will just be a step in the trail. But I also know that God is overwhelmingly pointing to December 19th. And if Paul Simon doesn't slip and fall and injure his head on this date, you can expect, or we can expect, most definitely, clear and relevant prophetic signs to occur on this date, which will reveal more information, which will lead further down the path, further down into the future, to the ultimate date that Paul Simon will slip and fall and injure his head. Okay? Now, so that's the story about August 1st. I really needed to get into that because you need to watch the August 1st videos. And there's a ton of them. There's probably like 15 to 20 videos. And they're all correct. They're all amazing information that everyone needs to know. Okay? Enough said. Now, following the sound of silence in heaven, in the 8th chapter of Revelation, is the destruction of ships that is described in Revelation 8:8. This description is a parallel with the ships described in Isaiah chapter 23. So a lot of Book of Revelation prophecy is a parallel with prophecy in the Old Testament. And in this case, the ships. So I've never heard this anywhere else, but that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that others aren't talking about it somewhere, out there. But it's clear that the ships are not arbitrary. God's not talking about ships and the destruction of ships in Revelation 8:8 for any old reason. It's not just for poetry. It means something. It's symbolism. And the more you understand Bible prophecy in the book of Revelation, the more you appreciate the symbolism and allegory in the prophecies, in direct contrast to what Chuck Missler used to say. Chuck Missler, I know there's a lot of fans of him out there. I'm, to a degree, a fan of his also. But he was misguided and not very insightful on a number of important things, I have to say, including this concept of taking the book of Revelation increasingly more literally as you get into it. And that was the big mistake that he made in his prophetic analysis, is that he didn't appreciate abstraction and symbolism. It wasn't inspired. A lot of what he said, the insightful things that he talked about, were not his discoveries. He was like the pioneer for gathering information that other people were discovering on the internet and putting into presentations. He himself didn't really make these discoveries that he often talked about. He was a good communicator, but he didn't really, in my opinion, get it. And fundamentally, when he talked about interpreting the book of Revelation literally, and increasingly more literally as he gets into it, is the exact opposite, is the truth. So the ships are symbolism for something. What are they symbolism for? Well, this is something that I don't think is being explained anywhere else out there, which is that there are people that claim that America is nowhere in Bible prophecy. But they couldn't be further from the truth. And furthermore, of course we would expect this to be the case, that there would be America throughout the prophecies. And there is. It's amazing when you understand what God is doing. The prophecies regarding ancient Tyre are symbolism for America. The reason is ancient Tyre was known and was prosperous because of its natural protection of oceans all on each side. America is providentially protected from God by oceans on all of its sides, if you think about it even. It's not just the Atlantic and Pacific, it's also the Arctic, and then it draws down into a narrow peninsula with the North America is completely surrounded by ocean. vast ocean. Anyway, and there's proof of this in God's big picture of signs, involving signs that hint at ancient Tyre, including the professional NFL player Tyreek Hill, for example, whose mansion roof burned on a date we were expecting a Paul Simon sign. And sure enough, we had a mansion sign, and there's this theme regarding mansions in Paul Simon signs, okay, that I've explained already in this video, or in prior paragraphs anyway, in this email thread. So anyway, I'm not going to explain the Tyreek Hill signs, but anyway, that's just one example. Now, in Isaiah chapter 23, we have a description of judgment on ancient Tyre, but also Tarshish and the daughter of Tarshish. And there's a euphemism regarding Tarshish in the prophecy, which is the ships of Tarshish. God refers to Tarshish as the ships of Tarshish. Tarshish, we know from ancient evidence, clearly was Great Britain. Great Britain was set apart, just like the Jewish people were set apart. The word set apart is holy in Hebrew. That's the word holy in Hebrew, means set apart. Great Britain was set apart from the rest of Europe for God to create this unique culture and language that he would use to spread the gospel around the world through also its daughter, America. The daughter of Tarshish in the prophecy is America. Great Britain became powerful, and the empire of a Great Britain the sun never set on because of its naval power and its merchant ships and its trading on the high seas. Likewise, America is the dominant power in the world, largely due to its navy, which can project power anywhere in the world through the oceans, and its aircraft carriers. And anyway, these two nations were set apart. They were surrounded by ocean, which compelled them to become powerful navies. And that's why the ships of Tarshish is referred to. It's America. It's symbolism for America. Again, you need to appreciate symbolism to be able to appreciate Bible prophecy. Now, there's all kinds of more proof. I'm just scratching the surface here, right? We've got pairings of 8 and 23. For example, the Washington, D.C. earthquake on the date 8/23. It's because of this parallel that identifies America with Revelation 8, and specifically also Revelation 8:8, but also with Isaiah chapter 23 and the ships. In other words, the destruction of ships in Revelation chapter 8 is symbolic of the destruction of America. This chapter begins with the sound of silence, which points to Paul Simon, whose career began with Sound of Silence. And Paul Simon has a big hit named America. Paul Simon's death will be the bookend to the warning of judgment for America on 9/11, which is why Paul Simon, at the other end of bookend, opened the broadcast after 9/11 on Saturday Night Live with the boxer, as in knocking the opponent out and collapsing to the mat, as in collapsing of the towers. And so Paul Simon's album Bookends is the album that contains the song America. In other words, Paul Simon's death will be the bookend to the opportunity for America to have repented. And his death will symbolize that that opportunity is now finished, complete, and now judgment and destruction are unavoidable. Yeah. When Paul Simon's death happens, it's over. I mean, I don't mean to be cynical. I just know what God is doing, and I know this from his big picture of signs. And those that are still hoping for and praying for revival, I don't want to say don't stop praying for that, but it's not going to happen. Okay? I don't mean to, and maybe it's not meant to be that the knowledge of what God is doing in his big picture of signs doesn't come until after the death of Paul Simon, so that people continue to pray for this revival that they're hoping will happen. But I know it's not going to happen because the big picture of signs reveals God's timing. And so does Bible prophecy, furthermore, for those that understand it. It's not a mystery. The doctrine of imminence is a heretical false doctrine from Satan. No one knows the hour, day or hour, is a misinterpretation and a mistranslation. Furthermore, there's a parenthesis there, which is involving Noah and the timing of the judgment. And Noah knew precisely the time of the judgment. We also have Amos 3:8, God's servants. God does nothing without his servants first knowing. All of his servants knew the precise timing of his judgment, whether it be Lot or Noah. Likewise, of course, his servants who are watching, as Jesus commanded, will obviously know the precise timing. And anyway, there's all kinds of other contradictions, all kinds of other passages that flatly contradict this doctrine of imminence, which is used as an excuse by those that are mostly still living in the world, barely living indistinguishable lives that are indistinguishable from other non-believers, but also it's used as an excuse to not watch, which Jesus commanded people to do, which is why in Revelation 3:3 he said, "Therefore watch, for if you do not watch, you will not know at the hour which I will come against you. Therefore, if you are watching, you will know the hour." That's quite clear. One contradiction to the doctrine of imminence right there, right in front of your face. Revelation 3:3. All right. Now, so where was I here? So what I was getting at was this explanation for how the ships described in Revelation chapter 8 and their destruction is symbolism for the destruction of America, because the ships symbolize America. I've made that clear now. So Paul Simon's hit song, Slip Slidin' Away, is from his 4th solo album. The song America, by the way, is from this 4th Simon & Garfunkel album. Paul Simon is predicted to slip and fall 23 days after 2 guard were shot by the man from 03 unit, which ends at 23, which was exactly 4 times 4 weeks, a pairing of 23 and 44, as I explained earlier. But this is also 8 plus 8 weeks. After the 8th prime number of years old driver slipped and fell off of his car 88 on the date 88. But we can pair it, 8 pairs with 23, as I mentioned, because of Isaiah chapter 23 and Revelation 8 regarding the ships that symbolize America. But also 23 and 44 pair together because the 44th president also is the basketball president who wore 23, as I explained earlier. So this 8 plus 8 weeks is also 4 times 4 weeks, which pairs with the 2 shot guard by the 03 unit. Now, on the same day, when the driver slipped and fell off his car number 88 on the date 88, as in Revelation 88 regarding the ships, was reported that a water slide on a Royal Caribbean cruise ship busted when a man was sliding on it. Sliding away. And this hints at the destruction of ships in Revelation 8:8, because it occurred on the date 88. Sliding Away, the song, was released from the album in 77, and this water slide on the ship busted 7 days after the sale of the mansion owned by the producer of the TV show Seventh Heaven, and on and on. So hopefully you are watching these videos in chronological order. I will also produce a video that has all of the paragraphs combined. I'll also make a video that doesn't divide up these paragraphs. All right. So anyway, because I explained the significance of the Seventh Heaven mansion earlier, but it's 7 days to this Sliding Away sign, and Sliding Away was released in 77. Okay. And it's a ship sign. And Paul Simon, Sound of Silence, at the beginning of Revelation 8, chapter 8:8, is this destruction of ships. And it was a destruction of a ship sign because it was the destruction of the slide. It's amazing. It's amazing, right? And it was also on the day of the guy that slipped off the car, number 88, on the date 88. The guy busted the slide while he was sliding on the ship the day that the guy slipped and fell off of his car, number 88, on the date 88. And he was the 8th prime number of years old. And it's exactly the 8th prime number of weeks before Paul Simon's predicted slip and fall on December 19th. It's amazing. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. In the last days, many people who claim to be a follower of Christ will have spiritual experiences that are in reality demonic. God became a man and died a horrible death at the hand of the ruler of this world, Satan, and then defeated death for you, so that you too can overcome death, which is the price that must be paid for sin. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. Do not listen to or follow the example of most quote-unquote Christians. Instead, follow the teachings of Jesus, which most quote-unquote Christians ignore. Like Jesus, you must surrender your life. Put nothing ahead of Jesus, your Lord. Like Jesus, you must lay down your life so that you may live. As Jesus said, one must die first, like a kernel of wheat going into the ground, in order to then grow and produce fruit. And like Jesus said, one must produce fruit, or else like a branch or a tree not producing fruit, they will be thrown into the fire. Jesus was speaking to quote-unquote Christians when he said this. One must die the self in order to be born again. And like Jesus said, one must be born again to enter the kingdom. Like Jesus, you must sacrifice your life for the sake of the coming kingdom. It means to do work that involves some form of sacrifice and risk. To have faith does not mean to intellectually agree. You need to demonstrate your faith through taking action. To have faith means to trust in God's promises. Taking action demonstrates trust and fear of the Lord. The primary reason that the wrath of God is coming upon America is quote-unquote Christians that do not get what I have just explained. The only reason a Christian is alive is in order to help other people become Christians and make it to the kingdom. Do not be deceived by those on the political left claiming to be quote-unquote Christians. There is no such thing as a Christian on today's political progressive left. Jesus said, "Do not think I have come to abolish or change any bit of the law or the prophets of the Old Testament Bible." In other words, the God of the Old Testament Bible is the exact same God of the New Testament Bible. It is essential that you learn about the God of the Bible and his ways. The God of the Old Testament Bible is looking to see who will fear him, and to fear God is not the same thing as quote-unquote revering or honoring God. Through Christ's ransom payment, a Christian is someone who has been redeemed and freed from slavery to sin and Satan. In response, a true Christian recognizes that their life in this world does not belong to them, and they become a willing slave to Jesus for the sake of the kingdom. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. And don't only put the link to this video or another video on this channel in comments sections of places you typically visit, but importantly, put the link to the video in places you never visit, where people who don't think like you visit. If you are a quote-unquote Christian, nothing in terms of an evangelism tool compares to this video with its prediction. It is a massive bag of gold. Beware of Jesus' warning through the quote-unquote Christian that did nothing with his bag of gold and was banished to hell. Also, read Ezekiel chapter 3 and 33 for this same warning. If you think you might be spending too much time watching videos instead of working and sacrificing for the kingdom through handing out flyers and potentially helping hundreds of people in the same length of time as a video, my flyer is filled with amazing information that people need to know right now, and it points people to the video channel. Now is not the time to be handing out typical evangelical tracts that are largely based in error anyway, such as, quote, "Jesus loves you," unquote, for example. You can hand out the flyer on busy street corners, put them on car windshields in busy parking lots, and put them in mailboxes. Just send the file to your local print shop. You can download the file from the website. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, asteroidprediction.com. If you are watching this on the YouTube platform, please note that not all of the videos are on YouTube. You need to switch to the Odyssey.com or Rumble.com channel, and do it now in case you aren't able to later.